Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving right into a deeply analytical and honestly fascinating text by Abu Yareb al-Marzuki called Equations of Existence and Survival. This work fundamentally challenges how we view history, religion, and the nuts and bolts of human progress. We're going to unpack the exact conditions that cause civilizations to either rise up or completely collapse.
We start things off with a massive historical mystery. It's an event that really forces us to ask, how on earth did completely marginalized, warring tribes manage to construct a global civilization so rapidly? Al-Marzuki points out an anomaly that is simply staggering when you think about it. How did these scattered Arab tribes, who were totally fragmented and living right under the shadow of the two largest, most powerful empires of their time, manage to unite, defeat those massive superpowers, and effectively push them right out of history? It's a compelling puzzle about the sheer mechanics of societal transformation.
To solve this mystery, here is our roadmap for The Explainer. We'll cover the historical mystery, flawed critiques, the paradigm shift, the 5 cosmic systems, the doctor analogy, and finally, resuming civilization.
Okay, let's jump straight into part 1, the historical mystery, and how these tribes escaped the margins of history. Less than one single century. That is all it took for these tribes to expand from the borders of China all the way to the heart of Europe. The speed of that is just breathtaking. But here's the kicker. They didn't pull this off by passively waiting for supernatural intervention. You see, in a time when older belief systems heavily relied on waiting for miracles that basically defied natural law, this new civilization actively engaged in strategic planning. They didn't just raise their hands to the sky and wait around. Instead, they engaged in rigorous historical action. They utilized the tangible, everyday laws of nature and society to build a massive global state. Moving right along to part 2, flawed critiques, specifically looking at Orientalism and Marxism. The text impartially examines 2 very popular modern views that try to explain this crazy rapid expansion. First, you have the Marxist view, which tries to map this massive historical leap onto a strictly economic model, essentially reducing these profound philosophical ideas to mere material realities. Then you have the Orientalist critique, which tends to dismiss the foundational text as just a patchwork or a plagiarized rhapsody of older traditions. But al-Marzuki asserts that both of these sides actually suffer from a major intellectual blind spot. He argues they completely fail to see the actual revolution in human thought that took place, remaining trapped in the illusion that human knowledge is absolute. Which brings us to part 3, the paradigm shift, moving from miracles to universal systems. Now, this is where the core pivot really happens. The old view of the world was characterized by waiting for the supernatural, relying on miracles that literally break natural laws, which, as you might guess, resulted in pretty passive populations. The new view, however, was a revolutionary call to recognize that the universe actually operates on strict, unbending laws. So, to succeed, humans had to actively study these universal systems and make history through persistent, grueling effort, not magic. According to al-Marzuki, this reversed the old Greek philosophical model, teaching instead that human knowledge is inherently limited. He calls it measuring the seen by the unseen. Think about it. If we only measure reality by what we can visibly see right in front of us, we easily fall into human arrogance. We start thinking we know everything. But when we measure our visible, tiny world against the vast, infinite, unseen universe, it humbles us. And that acceptance of our limits is exactly what drives the scientific method. It forces us into constant, active effort to learn more, simply because we recognize just how much we don't know. So, what exactly are these laws? Let's hit part 4, the 5 cosmic systems, the actual architecture of the universe. The text outlines 5 specific systems as this cosmic architecture, shifting the mindset away from seeking magic and toward engaging with rigorous laws. We're talking about foundational sciences here. You have the mathematical laws governing physics, the political and historical laws governing how states rise and fall, the biological laws dictating organic life, and the spiritual laws governing human ethics. And tying all of these together is the concept of divine oneness. It's essentially a grand puzzle, a unified theory of reality that serves as a direct, undeniable call to scientific inquiry. Now, in analyzing the deep structure of the Quran, the author really pushes back against a common trend among some modern scholars. You know, the ones who try to find hidden numerical miracles or codes to predict the future, like forecasting geopolitical shifts. He argues this is incredibly damaging. Searching for a hidden code actively paralyzes society. It just becomes another excuse to return to passive waiting, allowing people to avoid the hard, necessary work of real political and scientific struggle.
Let's move to part 5, the doctor analogy, or why free will has to come before reason.
To explain how we're supposed to interact with these natural laws, the text presents this absolutely brilliant analogy. It compares reason to medicine and free will to the doctor. Listen, reason alone is entirely neutral. Just like medical science, it can be engineered to create a life-saving vaccine or a deadly biological weapon. Reason doesn't care either way. It is free will, the human agent, the doctor, that actually carries the moral responsibility to make the ethical choice to heal.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that free will must precede and guide reason. If we believe raw intelligence or reason alone is going to save us, we inevitably fall into tyranny. Why? Because the smartest, most rational actors can also be the most cunning villains. Acknowledging that our reason is limited is the birthplace of true wisdom. It places the heavy burden of ethical, continuous struggle squarely on human free will.
Finally, part 6, resuming civilization and the conditions for rebuilding. So, how do we apply this paradigm shift today? Well, the author presents a 5-step framework as a blueprint for a civilizational resumption, basically a roadmap out of decadence. It begins with a stark realization, an awareness that humanity is inherently in a state of loss. This awareness must be fueled by faith, which then drives rigorous righteous action. And by righteous action, he means concrete scientific and historical work. And because this kind of work is incredibly difficult, it ultimately leads to a society that engages in the mutual commendation of truth and the mutual commendation of patience. The ultimate objective here? Active stewardship of the earth. It's a firm, uncompromising rejection of victimhood and passivity. The text concludes that a society cannot merely consume the science and the protection of other nations and expect to thrive. It absolutely must produce its own scientific effort and actively engage in shaping its own political destiny.
And that leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question regarding the future of any civilization. Are we going to step up, do the hard work, and actively master the mathematical, historical, and biological systems of our universe? Or will we just sit back on the margins of history, entirely paralyzed, waiting for a miracle that defies the very laws we were meant to study?